aspects so that we can finish before the namaz time and then proceed with the rest of the program. The Prophet ﷺ said, that man's worst enemy is pride and arrogance. When a person starts arrogating to himself a position for which he might not be even qualified, or when he tries to think that he is very important, or he forms a habit of congratulating oneself, at that particular moment, in his own estimation, he finds himself very high. That is gradually becoming an enemy to oneself. Naturally, nobody likes to become one's own enemy, because everyone likes oneself most, values oneself best and highest. For that reason, it is really strange that one should ever elect to be one's own enemy. So somebody asked the Prophet ﷺ that how does one become an enemy of oneself? By becoming proud, by being arrogant. And the answer which he gave was so pertinent and so apt, and nobody can from his own experience deny it, that one can definitely progress in any field one has chosen as long as one has a feeling that there is so much yet to be achieved. As long as one feels that he has got a lot of stages to pass before he comes to his goal, as long as he has not satisfied himself, he has a feeling of inadequacy and he thinks that he hasn't reached the pinnacle. The moment he feels that he has reached perfection and there is no need or there is no rung in this ladder left over, he has reached the summit, at that particular moment the progress stops, and stopping one's own progress is becoming one's own enemy. Because while you can still go on and on towards perfection, you are trying to strangle your progress just before you have reached the final stage of perfection. You become your own enemy. But worse than arrogance, worse than pride, worse than showmanship and display, there's another thing for which Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullah wasalam alayhi said that worse than that is ujub. Ujub means to like oneself, to be happy with oneself, to congratulate oneself. And in that there is a trick which people play by outwardly, ostensibly displaying humility. They try to prove that they are very humble, but within their own conscience, they like themselves, they congratulate themselves, they are in love with themselves, and for that reason they believe there is none like them. Outwardly they are very humble. They meet with you displaying all that humility, but in himself there is a feeling which in Persian is said, Hamchu man digari neest. There is none like me on earth. That feeling where one begins to congratulate oneself, falls in love with oneself, and is proud but ostensibly does not admit it, that is a very dangerous step in our development. And tonight, since we are going to congratulate two families, or rather 4 families, for the marriage that is being performed, and may Allah give us the occasion of attending many more such marriages, because I firmly believe that marriages at this age solve a number of social problems in a community. But before I proceed to congratulate them, this has got to be understood that the day one tries to be arrogant or tries to have ujub, that means what we say khud pasandi, then the problem begins at home. When the husband feels that whatever he has said for once must be taken as a final command by everyone in the house. There could be anything which would make it impossible to carry out that command, but he is not prepared to understand it, and he is not even prepared to forgive. It was my order, why didn't you do? The day husband tries to dominate in his own family the way I have described, that is the beginning of a long road to tragedy. One has to understand that there can be no final order in any sphere, because there are so many circumstantial things attendant upon every incident. One can never forecast, one can never predict. Husband goes from the house and says, look, tonight I must have pudding, right? And the wife goes to the shop to find out some eggs. If I know the ingredients, I do not know, but I just guess there must be some eggs in pudding. The taste of pudding is in the eating, as they say. Well, and some milk and all that. She went and purchased. But when she came home and she started preparing pudding, something happened. Something went wrong, and the pudding finally could not be ready. And the husband Maharaj came home. Where is the pudding? And the wife tries to explain. This is how it happened. No. How could it happen? And then, of course, one after another incident occurs. The psychological factor working behind such petty quarrels is that the husband is not prepared to understand that he is not all in all on this earth. That he is so self-conceited that he cannot conceive any situation where his order is not carried out. Well, that is an illness, and it has got to be avoided. There has got to be some reasonable attitude in life where we will understand the point of view of the other. Maybe there is some reason in what he says, and what I said could not be complied with. If this does not exist in a family, it can create a lot of problems. And even in a society where leadership is one of the principal factors, one has got to, what they say, give and take. But once obsessed with conceit, with arrogance, then we have all sorts of problems. So the Prophet said this, and he himself gave a reason, and in his own life gave examples. There are several examples. For example, going for an outing together with his own companions. The companions requested him that let us go today just for an outing, a picnic, whatever you call it. And the Prophet said, where shall we go? He said, we shall go out in the desert, pitch a tent, slaughter an animal, have our own dinner outside. And the Prophet said, well, we will go. And the companions went. When they reached there, they pitched up a tent, and the Prophet was sitting in the tent, and he saw that somebody was busy slaughtering the animal. After the animal was slaughtered, somebody was skinning it, trying to cut meat into pieces, and he rose. He came out of the tent and went towards the desert. And someone said, Ya Rasulullah, where are you going? He said, I'm going to collect some wood so that you can have fire, and then you'll be able to cook. And the companion said, Ya Rasulullah, we take pride in serving you. You please sit down where you are. We will go and collect the fuel, the wood. We take pride that we are in service to you. So allow us to serve you and do not come out in this hot sun. And the Prophet said, Allah hates him who tries to enjoy a privilege over people because of his position. One has to share the labor. One has to work together so that in as far as living is concerned, we are seen equal to each other. And the Prophet went and brought some wood and he shared. That is one. Imam Jaffer Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamu alayh. When the qafila of Hujjaj, Hajis came to see him in Medina, after Hajj was over, one fellow said, Yabna Rasulillah, we were very fortunate. We had an alim, a learned man with us. And he was also very pious. So Imam alayhi salam said, what was he doing all the time when he was pious? He said, he's always sitting on the musalla. Wherever we went, if we were in Makkah, Makkah, if we were in Muna, if we were in Arafat, if we were in Muzdalifah, wherever we went, he was always praying, always praying. He was such a pious man. And Imam alayhi salam said, who looked after his belongings and his camel? I mean, in those days, it was just like saying, who looked after his car? So they said, Yabna Rasulullah, there is no such question at all. It's not relevant. We were all in his service. His camel was looked after by us. We provided the meals. We looked after him. We never allowed him to work. Imam alayhi salam said, then your Hajj was 1,000 times better than his. Mal'unun, mal'unun, man wada'a kallahu ala nas. Cursed be he who keeps his own burden upon the shoulders of people. Because this is where people try to believe, some, that we have a right to enjoy that superiority over others, while there is no such thing. We have got to understand that any act which gives arrogance or which gives an impetus to arrogance has been discouraged. When the Prophet said, when you say Salamun alaykum wa rahmatullah, you get 90% of thawab, of reward. Greetings, peace be upon you. And when you answer, which is wajib, wa alaykum assalam wa alaykum assalam wa rahmatullah, 10% of thawab is given to you. 90% goes to him who initiates the greeting. 10% goes to him who responds. Why? Because the Prophet said that who he sits high must first greet. If you are driving, if you are in your car, you have to greet the pedestrian. If you are sitting high while people sitting low listening to you, you say Salamun alaykum. If you are older by age, you say salam to the younger. If you are senior in any position, you say Salamun alaykum to those who are junior. So that that particular sense of being privileged or having any preference is totally discouraged. I remember having read that incident where Abdullah ibn Jaffer, the husband of Nabi Zainab, salamullah alayha, Abdullah ibn Jaffer is known to be a very generous man. People used to flock to his house for assistance. Nabi Zainab's husband. And he's also Imam alayhi salam's nephew. He's son of Jaffer ibn Abi Talib. So people used to come, they used to tell each other, if you are in need, go to Abdullah ibn Jaffer. One day as he was passing the opposite direction, who Abdullah ibn Jaffer had helped. Not once, but 2-3 times. So Abdullah ibn Jaffer expected that the man will greet, will bow down and say Salamun alaykum. He has received assistance 3 times. He is obliged. And just as he passed by, Abdullah ibn Jaffer observed that the man did not say even Salamun alaykum. He just went by. So Abdullah really felt how ungrateful people are. When they need us, they come to us by day and by night. But when they have received the assistance, they forget. So Abdullah ibn Jaffer turned back and said, "Brother, Salamun alaykum." And the fellow said, "Wa alaykum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. How are you, Abdullah ibn Jaffer?" So he said, Abdullah said, "Where were you? Didn't you observe as you just passed by?" He said, "I observed. And I saw it was Abdullah ibn Jaffer. But you know, I can never repay you for whatever you have done to me. There is no possibility, I don't see in this lifetime, to be able to pay you back, except I wanted to act according to the hadith of the Prophet, to allow you to earn 90% of reward by initiating the greeting so that I may answer. You may get the better part of it. So I decided that I will just pass by, allow you to say Salamun alaykum. Your thawab may be higher, mine may be lower. You might feel for a few minutes that I have neglected you, but I have not." Well, this is a sort of thing which akhlaq and behavior which goes as our lesson to the princes who are getting married tonight. I don't know what the best men have told them, but we used to have best men, and we have acted as sometimes best men. But we know what we are told and what we tell. Normally we tell them how to match their tie with their suit, and so on. And of course about the customs that we will have to conduct ourselves with in this Imambara, by shaking hands and congratulating each other, one after the other. And kiss the hands of one who reads nikah, otherwise he will not. And so on. But what we are going to tell them is that tonight is the night upon which your destiny rests. Your married life. Do not be carried away by a civilization which does not conform with Islam. Ostensibly it might be very attractive. It does not function. It does not work. The only civilization which works even today is that which has been approved by Islam. Do not go for outward things. When the Prophet said, "Tonight as you enter your room, keep your hand over the head of your bride and say, 'Oh Allah, I have accepted this lady as my wife according to your Sharia. And if you allow her to conceive by me, let there be children who are decent citizens, followers of Tawheed.'" And the same thing for the bride to say by placing her hand on the head of the groom. Same. So Mullah Sahab, you want us to pray 2 rakat even tonight? Well, I'm sorry to say that many grooms were told that Namaz-e-Maghrib also was forgiven, because they are already in the suit. How can they do wuzu now? The bride will not pray Namaz-e-Maghrib because she's already in her sari. One has to understand that in Islam, every hour, every aspect of my life goes with religion, with Islam. We do not say that that which belongs to Caesar goes to Caesar, that which belongs to Christ or church belongs to church. No. In Islam, my dear friends, we live our faith. We live our faith. So, when the bride prays tonight, inshallah, Maghrib and Isha, before she finally prepares her to go anywhere in the Imam Bar or whatever, and when the groom removes his suit to make a wudu and prays, then we demonstrate in practice that, Ya Allah, at all phases in my life, whether it be grief or sorrow, whether it be pleasure and joy, I do not forget you. My every aspect of living is associated with the final, ultimate existence. It's a philosophy which many might not be able to understand and assimilate, but it is a Muslim way of life. That is one thing. Second thing, be kind, because according to Islamic way of life, a woman who chooses to be your wife comes into your trust. You become a trustee. She is an amanat of her parents, whoever's daughter she may be, and she is placed in trust. So, for you to act as a guardian and for the bride to act as a decent ward so that life may continue, the bride has got to be told by the husband that you are going to your husband, by her father, they're going to your husband, and the groom to be told that you are receiving a trust which you will have to look after. In Nahjul Balagha, Mawla says, Innaha rayhanatun laysat biharmana. A woman is a flower, is not to be treated per force. I can't imagine what sort of man is that man who can lift his hand to beat his wife. Can't imagine. What a beastly person that must be, who can catch the wife by the scarf and put her head into the basin, who can hit, who can blow, who can knock down a woman helpless. I can't understand. All this goes because of some illness in our morals and ethics, and because of that undue arrogance, pride and self-conceit, where the spirit of forgiving and forgetting is lost taught. And then comes for the women, imbued by the teaching of this society, where a woman is told that you are free, therefore do whatever you like, forgetting that she was always free according to Islam. The freedom that has been now given is not a freedom to perpetuate your life. This freedom which is now being offered by this society is a freedom which allows you to create as much of friction as possible. Early in the morning, the wife rises, and so does the husband. Where are you going today? Oh dear, darling, don't ask me. I go my way, you go my way, your way. Finito. But don't ask. She comes back after midnight. Husband cannot speak. This sort of independence and this sort of freedom may suit many others. It cannot suit a family which is running Islamically, where the philosophy of marriage was, as Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha said. And this is something which we may always ponder over, as to if it was only to procreate, to reproduce, then even man could have reproduced like animals. I mean, there was nothing which could have stopped. If it was only continuation of my progeny, only bringing children into this world, then one could have done even the way the animals do it. Why? Allah said that do it, you will have to do it. It's a natural thing. Allah wants it, that there be procreation. But do it the way I tell you. Why? Why nikah? Otherwise, there could have been anything to reproduce. Fatima salamullah alayha says that by laying down certain rules of nikah, Allah has described and determined the right of both man and woman living as a common bond on earth as long as they live. One thing. Second thing, that the procreation is truly and fairly and honestly associated to a particular couple, that you may not be able to say tomorrow, we don't know whose son you are and whose daughter you are. In order to give that protection to the purity of your progeny, there has got to be understood one thing, that man and woman live together in nikah, so that the children born can be said. It's not like what is said, al-waladu lil-firash walil-ahir al-hajar. Prophet said, al-walad lil-firash. The procreation of children is determined by the bridal bed, where the children are conceived, not by the stones where the illegitimate children are born. Try to understand. So a woman who goes away and the husband has no right to ask whether astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh, she has remained chaste or not, whether she has not moved about with other men or not. He cannot ask. You are expecting man to be so liberal. This is freedom. If this is freedom, then this freedom is exactly the freedom of donkeys and monkeys. In man and in a Muslim society, this does not happen. But the freedom in many aspects is still there for a woman. If I were to enlarge upon it, maybe there will be an uproar. But I can tell you, because I do sit sometimes on matrimonial committees, no one has right to come and tell me, Mullah Sahab, I want to divorce my wife because she does not give me a cup of tea in the morning. That has not been written anywhere. But whenever I say this, people start shouting and say, we will now miss our morning cup of tea from tomorrow because you have given them this freedom. It's not so. What they forget is that when a wife in the morning comes and gives you a cup of tea to say, here is it, Assalamu alaikum, that is how the family runs. On the basis of akhlaq, family runs. When she does it out of her love and affection for you, as a father to her children and as her husband. The same way, if you can reciprocate one day, go down in the kitchen and make a cup of tea for your wife. Have you ever thought of that? Go and make a cup of tea for your wife and say, Begum Sahiba, here it is. Then you will know, Alal Maharil Ma'loom, which we will read just now. And I can assure them that whatever we will read is going to be, inshallah, to their benefit. May Allah keep them happy. And inshallah, these marriages, both of them, will be such which will keep all the families, inshallah ta'ala, happy and make the couple prosperous, capable of leading an Islamic way of life. Grant them long lives and give them the wisdom of not practicing family planning immediately. So that the hadith of the Prophet is completed. Tanakahu, tanasalu, takfuru. Marry by all means, procreate and multiply. فَإِنِّي أُبَاهِي بِكُمُ الْأُمَامِ, I shall be proud on the day of judgment that I have so many followers. وَلَوْ بِالسِّقْتِ, even if I have to count miscarriages. So, inshallah ta'ala, there will be an increase in the ummah. And for the families involved, I don't have time to say, but they are the families to whom I would have liked to say only one thing, that your services to this community and your families and your elders and their services to this community are known. There is no time to dwell upon them. But may Allah reward your families with the services they are rendering now and with services they have rendered in the past. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.